Hi there, Malcolm here with my 289th Booktube video, and today I'll be bringing you another bookshelf tour. Took you up and down this one the other day, link to that below. Had quite a few positive comments about it, so I thought, why not have another one? So, you're going to have to come with me. As we leave the library, most of these are my wife's books, with a couple of exceptions. I have a shelf up there, which is mostly Halo and StarCraft. And a shelf down there, which is mostly Julia May and Toby Frost. Oh, one below it, which are my Andy McDermott's and Matthew Riley's. So come with me as we leave that. And oh, look, there's a pile of books just hanging around there. Into the bedroom. And down the side of my bed is my science fiction bookcase. And I'll just go stick you on the tripod. So everything on these three shelves I have read, and they're in alphabetical order according to author. And if I pan up on top of my bookcase, I have my TBR stack. So also in author order, these are all the books to read and I haven't got round to yet. And basically every time I go to a charity shop and pick up something, it ends up in this ridiculous wall here. So I'll focus on the red pile first. So we have Douglas Adams, or the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, and the Dirk Gently series. Latest acquisition was a gift from my wife, a nice celebratory hardback Masterworks Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's rather lovely, but it is the third edition of the book I've got now. I have this old battered copy. My wife got this edition. And interesting, when we first met, we had three books that matched. One was Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Second was the sequel, Restaurant at the End of the Universe. And we both actually had this exact edition. And the third one was Mort by Terry Pratchett. We're going to Brian Aldiss, The Dark Light Years, Paul Anderson, The Long Way Home, Edward Ashton, The Fourth Consort, Raptor Red, Robert T. Baker. Nice holographic cover there. And one of the weirdest covers I've got, Stress Pattern by Neil Barrett Jr. We'll then move into Stephen Baxter. So we've got these Flood duology, Mammoth trilogy, Manifold series, Proxima Ultima, with Obelisk, the short story tie-in, part one of NASA, Voyage, the sequel to The Time Machine, The Time Ships, that was a slog, and one he did with Arthur C. Clarke, Times I. And we've got Against Infinity by Gregory Bedford, part of the Jupiter Project series. I've only read that one though. And then my Lloyd Biggle Jr. collection. So Fury Out of Time. Another really weird cover. Some sort of weird centipede thing. Now, The Light That Never Was. And the more recent one I read, The Still Small Voice of Trumpets. Fantastic covers these, I love these. Then we've got James Blish, Jack of Eagles. And Marianne Zimmer Bradley, Hunters of the Red Moon. Nice funky cover there. World War Z and Down to Earth by Louis Charbonneau. Next shelf down is Arthur C. Clarke, 2061 Odyssey 3 and 3001 The Final Odyssey. My dad's got the first two of that series. Ready Player One, Ernest Cline. What's that one? Philip K. Dick, The Cosmic Puppets. And a nice psychedelic cover with Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams. A tie into the Channel 4's TV series that they did quite a few years ago now. Really hope they were going to do some more of that sort of thing, but they haven't. Nice traditional looking cover, Galaxies Ahead by Terence Hale. Book I reviewed a few months ago, Damn You Entropy, 1001 of the greatest science fiction quotes. And of course, no decent science fiction bookshelf is complete without Harry Harrison. So we've got Star Smashers of the Galaxy Rangers, the Turing Option, fantastic book on AI. So quite relevant for today's era, where we actually have actual AI happening rather than the fake copyright infringement stuff. And they've got Robert Heinlein, or as I've learnt recently, Heinlein is how it's pronounced. The Day After Tomorrow, also known as The Sixth Column, and one he's best known for, The Puppet Masters. Then we've gone to Frank Herbert, so we've got June, The God Makers, quite an exciting cover there, and The Priests of Psi, which is a short story collection. Fantastic Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. If you haven't read that, go and read it. And this one I picked up mostly for the cover, Galactic Odyssey by Keith Lormer. Got a little bit of horror in there with Sarah Lotz's The 3 and Day 4. And then Tim Lebbon's Coldbrook, Eden the Everlasting. and part of the Stranger Times series, This Charming Man by C.K. McDonnell. I do have the others, but they're in hardback, so they get a different bookcase. Oh, that's in the wrong place, that shouldn't be there. Mine on Identical Twin by Evie Meg. Fascinating reading that one is, but that's in the wrong bookcase entirely. And then in one of my videos I asked for recommendations, and someone recommended Planetfall by Emma Newman, which I got. It was not great, but I decided to stick with it and got After Atlas and tried that one. That was much better. I do kind of want to continue the series, possibly with a bit of a miss and a bit of a hit. I'm not sure, but I am very much aware that I haven't got many female authors on my bookshelves, and so kind of undecided really. Particularly as the next one, The Terraformers, another one I've done an individual video on as well, by Annalee Newitz. I didn't really enjoy that much either, so that can probably go. One I picked up on Spur at the moment was Stringers, Chris Panettiere. Someone goes on an adventure with their jar of gherkins. I couldn't resist. Very clever, quite a lot of fun. And then my Alistair Reynolds collection. So we've got Century Rain, which I listened to on Audible a couple of months ago, so that's on here because of that. I'm telling myself that's not cheating, but there you go. Revelation Space and the tie-in Prefect Dreyfus Emergency Series, Aurora Rising and Elysium Fire. I have got Machine Vendetta, but that's again in hardback and on a different shelf. And the Revenger Trilogy, again, I've only got one in the paperback, the other two on the other shelf. Absolutely brilliant series. And his short story collection, Beyond the Aquila Rift. Quite a good one to try if you're not sure about where to start with Alistair Reynolds. That's a bit of everything in there, even though it is quite big. Down to the bottom shelf, Adam Roberts' I'm Scrooge, A Zombie Story for Christmas. One I'll probably try and reread this Christmas. And 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. New York 2140 by Kim Stanley Robinson. And a really weird one, Telempath by Spider Robinson. Also to do with psychic smells. Well, something like that anyway. The Best of Eric Frank Russell. Another short story collection of another great sci-fi author. And then to my Bob Shaw collection. Bearing in mind a lot of Bob Shaw that I've read is my dad's. Killer Planet novella. Medusa's Children. Absolutely fantastic. But one of the worst edited books I've ever read. Orbitsville. Definitely not the cover I ordered, because I had that one first. Orbitsville Departure. And Ship of Strangers. It's okay. Moving on to another new favourite author of mine, John Scalzi, with Red Shirts and Starter Villain. I do have more, but that's on a different shelf because they're hardback. More Bob Shaw, that's got in the wrong order. So I've got Here Goes Here and The Two Timers. Get over there, Scalzi. I think I have more Bob Shaw than that. Anyway, there we go. And what else we got? Another weird one, Time Dissolvers by Jerry Soule. Halcyon Drift by Brian Stableford. That's part of the Hooded Swan series. And then Adrian Tarkovsky. I got the Children of Time trilogy in here with new acquisition Bearhead stuffed on the top because he won't fit otherwise, annoyingly. Fade Out by Patrick Tilley. And The Dragon Masters by Jack Vance. Evan Vogt, The Weapon Shops of Isha. Things like that. And then we've got David Webber's Honor Harrington series. That's books 1, 2 and 3. On Basilisk Station, The Honour of the Queen and The Short Victorious War. First two are great. Third one was a bit of a disappointment. That's one of those authors I was an automatic buy. I got a whole bunch of his stuff, but didn't have book 2 for ages. Finally got book 2, read book 3, and then didn't have book 4, which I have picked up the other day. So I might continue with that at some point. Andy Weir, the two big ones. The Martian and Project Hail Mary. Absolutely fantastic, both of those. I've read Artemis as well. That wasn't quite so good, but I highly recommend those two. And of course, look out for the film coming out soon for Project Hail Mary. Rather disappointing cover for Don Wyndham's The Day of the Triffids. And I bought that one from school. The Midditch Cuckoos, better known as The Village of the Damned, which I didn't know until I read it. And The Kraken Wakes. Why people don't talk about that one more, I don't know. That's fantastic. Walking Dead novels. So The Road to Woodbury, Rise of the Governor, Fall of the Governor Part 1 and 2. There's a duel written by Robert Kirkman and Jay Bonanzinga. On the book 5 now, Descent, which is just by Jay Bonanzinga. And they're called Robert Kirkman's The Walking Dead. And then we got, at the end here, short story collections by various authors. So I've got Evil Earths, edited by Brian Aldiss. Quite a new series of short story collections. from the British Library, Space Worlds, Stories of Life in the Void, Science Fiction Omnibus, 21st Century Dead, nice zombie short story collection, wasn't bad either, and Old Venus, which is a great collection of short stories written in modern times about a Venus that was lost when it was realised it's a dead, hot, poisonous planet. Now, before we knew that, it was believed to be potentially swampy and full of dinosaurs and all sorts of things. So these are stories set on that version of Venus, but written in contemporary times. Brilliant stuff. So those are books I have read. I'll do a much quicker whiz through the ones I haven't, because frankly I don't necessarily know what they're about. So at the end there, hidden behind my mug of bookmarks, because you can never have too many bookmarks, are Brian Aldiss's Heliconia trilogy, another short story collection on Lost Mars, the Golden Age of the Red Planet. So we have Brian Aldiss, Piers Anthony, Isaac Asimov. Been meaning to reread Foundation for ages. And there's more from Stephen Baxter, the short story collection, more of NASA, and then that series, which is like the tail end of his Zealey sequence of books, which I got to read first before I can get to there. Gregory Benford, James Blish, Ben Bother. Never read Ben Bother. I've had these books for years. Ian and Banks from his Culture series. I've read 3 of them. I've got a couple more. And at the top again, there's my Star Wars Lego minifigure keyring collection, all arranged in chronological order from the Phantom Menace all the way up to Disney Star Wars, Return of the Jedi. Alright, back here, so we've got Ray Bradbury, more Marion Zimmer Bradley, Philip K. Dick, Gameplays of Titan, Gordon R. Dixon, Bill Forkett, St. Peter F. Hamilton, short story collection edited by Harry Harrison. Yes, there's Harry Harrison there I have not read. Skyfall and The Say So Rat Goes to Hell. That is going to be a reread. Gosh, look how faded that one is. That's my dad's. And War of the Robots. I have not read that one. Robert Heinlein, Space Cadet and the Star Beast, which I frankly picked up purely for this fantastic cover. How awesome is that? And The Worlds of Robert Heinlein. Got Douglas Hill. That's his Corsair trilogy. And The Last Legionary Quartet. Picked these up because they were like £1 each. So by John Birmingham, Day versus the Monsters, Resistance and Emergence. They look quite silly, but there we go. More of The Walking Dead, or Robert Kirkman's The Walking Dead. The Zombie Survivor Guide by Max Brooks, same person who wrote World War Z. Book 6 of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Ewan Colfer. Ewan Colfer? I think it's Ewan. I've not brought myself to read that one yet. Not by Douglas Adams. I've got it. It's there. Some books from the Andromeda series by William C. Dietz. I read some of his Legion of the Damned. Quite enjoyed that. Thought I'd give that a go. Nemesis List by R.J. Frith. Picked it up because it's a female author of sci-fi. Thought I'd give it a go, and it's just sat on my shelf for ages. And Ursula K. Le Guin, The Word for World is Forest. Back to the top again is The Mouse and His Child. Not really sci-fi, it's more fantasy, this one, by Russell Hoban. I read this when I was a child. It completely destroyed me. I felt it's long enough now for me to give it another go and be destroyed all over again. It's some sort of fantasy humour with Tom Holt. So, expecting someone taller, falling sideways, only human, little people, Snow White and the Seven Samurai. That one, again, will be a reread. Years ago I read that one. I have no recollection of it whatsoever. So, I borrowed it from my dad so I can reread it. Mine is in the Sky. That one's so faded I can't even tell who wrote it. Murray Leinster. With a weird, bobbly cover there. Barry B. Longier, Sea of Glass. Julian May. I absolutely love her Galactic Milieu series and Saga of the Exiles, so I wanted to try something else. This is book 3 of something else, so let's go sit there until I find book 1. Larry Niven, The Ringworld Engineers, book 2 of The Fantastic Ringworld. And Next of Kin by Eric Frank Russell. I sort of reread this one. Tim Lebbon, his Relics series. I've read Relics and The Folded Land. I borrowed those from the library. I've subsequently picked up the trilogy, so I can read The Edge, but it's been long enough to have to reread the first 2, which are currently free on Audible, so I might listen to them and then read The Edge. Fritz Lieber, The Wanderer, and then Sylvain Nouvelle, Sleeping Giants and Waking Gods, and some Alistair Reynolds I'm not got around to yet, so Blue Remembered Earth, Eversion, Chasm City, which I'll be reading very soon, Zima Blue, and Kim Stanley Robinson, Red Moon. And Dogmatics here is looking after my Bob Shaws. These I picked up very recently. from World of Books. You do check out that website, it's fantastic for books you can't find anywhere else. Dark Knight in Toyland, The Ragged Astronauts and the Wooden Spaceships. Robert Sheckley with Options, The Unending Night, George H. Smith, Jack Vance, Whist, Alistair 1710, A Journey to the Centre of the Earth by Jules Verne. I am currently listening to that on Audible, got half an hour to go. Read to me by the lovely Tim Curry. And that's currently free on Audible. A. Van Vogt, so The Pawns of Null A in the World of Null A. And then, like I said, David Webber, I've got a few more. Field of Dishonour, which I think is book 4. Flag and Exile, War of Honour, which are like way down the list somewhere, so I've got to get the intermediate ones before I can even attempt those. Aliens Among Us by James White. He's a surprisingly good author as well. And then 2 short story collections, I think, by John Wyndham, The Secret People and Sleepers of Mars. And underneath that is more John Scalzi, The Collapsing Empire, Consuming Fire and The Last Emperox, which I got from, I think, World of Books again. And my wife very nicely acquired the other 2 from the bookshop that she works at. It was very nice of her. Also have The Shattering Peace as well. Edward Kofsky's The Doors of Eden, The Book of Accidents by Chuck Wendig, and Yesterday's Hero by Jonathan Wood. Looks like another zombie type thing. So there we go, I hope you enjoyed that. And don't forget, positive feedback will result in potentially more bookshelf tours. So if you don't want any more bookshelf tours, then keep stum. But feel free to comment below about the books that you saw on there. No spoilers, please, for my TBR stack. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and other YouTube things if you want. And until next time, see you later.